survivors of domestic violence. This provides free lock changes and the installation of a home security camera at domestic violence survivors' homes. And this is an essential way to provide protection for those who have suffered and are still under the threat of potential domestic violence. Robbie Schlaff, who's director of our Office for Women, has highlighted the importance of us taking action both administratively and legislatively to protect those who are victims of domestic violence. But I will ask certainly the chair and Legislator Inman Word to explain the bill in some greater detail. This is the product of legislative review and modification. And sometimes people get frustrated with democracy. Things don't happen quite as fast as they like. At this level of government, I think it happens reasonably fast. But a good idea starts out as an idea, but it has to be shaped into law and legislation, given the authority that the state government and our constitutional charter gives us the opportunity to do. So we're here today to make a law out of something that is certainly a logical, common sense direction, and I'm very proud that in a few minutes I'll have the opportunity to complete that process as the county executive. But again, we are visitors in the House of our friends in the Board of Legislators, so let me introduce the chair of the Westchester County Board of Legislators, the Honorable Madat Gashi. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, County Executive Latimer. I'd like to note, since I was charged with the responsibility of recognizing that we have been joined by Legislator Shanae Williams from Yonkers. And County Executive Latimer mentioned it, but this is an idea that came from the legislator. It was specifically Legislator David Imamura and championed by David Imamura and Legislator Emiliana Ulai, who wasn't able to make it here today. But it was, again, a good idea that started with David Imamura, was represented, or rather was presented to us, and very quickly got wide support across the legislature. I think all of us signing on as co-sponsors, and we found eager and supportive voices in the executive. In George Latimer and Deputy County Executive Ken Jenkins, in Robbie Schlaff in the Office for Women, and I think the bill was made better because of their efforts. The perils of domestic violence are something I think we're all sensitive to, and the idea is that what was found is that there's domestic violence victims and tend to be one of the greatest drivers of emergency shelter and transitional housing units care for so many people. The notion that when somebody gets a protective order of custody or some domestic violent incident happens, some people don't have the money or resources to be able to change the locks, to provide for their very safety so they can feel safe in their very homes, was something that I think we all found objectionable and abhorrent. And that's why we passed this bill. And again, it was made better by Robbie Schlaff and so many others coming together and highlighting some other areas we can be helpful, including cameras and other areas, ring cameras and other areas where we can make it better. But I think I'll stop speaking about the specifics of the legislation because the person who came up with the idea is here to do that. And so I think I would now turn it on to Legislator David Imamura.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I want to begin by thanking you, Chairman Gashi, thanking Majority Leader Woodson Samuels, my fellow sponsor, Emiliana Ulai, who could not be here today, and all of my colleagues for their unanimous support of this bill. I also want to thank County Executive Latimer, Deputy County Executive Jenkins, Robbie Schlaff, and your amazing team at the Office for Women, and the County Attorney's Office, I think I saw Shauna back there, for your help and support in making this possible. Lastly, I want to thank the people outside of government, especially my constituent and neighbor, Sandy Kemisher, from the Pace Women's Justice Center, and my colleagues, Amanda Reben and Allison Kariski, for lending their expertise and knowledge for the drafting process. This bill arises from a tragedy that occurred in New Jersey in February of 2020. Ruth Esther Reyes de Severino had successfully obtained a temporary restraining order against her abusive husband. However, when she asked her landlord to change the locks to her apartment, they said no. She asked again and again. Not once, not twice, but 5 times. Still, her landlord did nothing. On February 5th, Ruth's husband inserted a key into the apartment's lock, opened the door, and stabbed Ruth and her children to death. The highest calling of any elected official is to help the people who cannot help themselves. And I can think of few populations more in need of help than domestic violence victims. In one study, 40% of people housed in New York City's shelter system were escaping domestic violence at home. At the end of the day, this bill is about safety. The ability to feel safe in your own home, and for your children to feel safe where they've grown up. Today, the County of Westchester proudly says to all domestic violence victims, we will help keep you safe. And your safety should not and will not be at the mercy of your landlord or held hostage by your ability to pay for proper protection. Westchester County has you and your families back. So today, this legislation creates not only a program for payment for lock changes, but also for ring cameras. And Robbie Schlaff and Amanda will get into this. But it is a comprehensive program to ensure people's safety. So again, my deepest gratitude to my colleagues in government for making today possible. But most importantly, I want to express my appreciation to the Office for Women, the Pace Women's Justice Center, and all the men and women who are working on the front lines dedicate their lives to helping vulnerable populations and will ultimately be the ones implementing this program. So again, thank you so much to all of my colleagues here in government, and I will pass this on to Robbie Schlaff from the Office of Women.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, David. So it's pretty obvious that we have something special in Westchester County, and we talk about this all the time. And Cindy will be speaking as well. We have this incredible coordinated community response to family violence that is a model for not only the state, but the country and the world. And it is because we work together so well, whether it's the Board of Legislators, the District Attorney's Office, the outside contractors like Pace Women's Justice Center, the domestic violence service providers. We all work together to try to provide safety for families that are suffering. And when David had heard about this program in New York City, he said, why don't we have this in Westchester? And we all said, we should. And then the question was how to make it work. And working with the Board of Legislators, the County Exec's Office, the Law Department, we wanted to make it work for Westchester. And when he mentioned the ring cameras, they don't have that in New York City. I don't know why. But when we talked to survivors, we said, what would you need to be able to stay in your home, not to have to go to a shelter, not to have to upend your family and take them out of the school district and change your entire life? They said, lock changes definitely, windows, lock changes, but also having those cameras and getting someone not only to see them, but also to have that evidence when you go to court for a violation of an order of protection. So that made sense to us, and since we are an incredibly sensible community in Westchester, we said, let's add that to the legislation, and we did. So this is huge. This is something that may seem small. This will have tremendous impact on the families that we serve, all of us, and that we try to keep safe. So thank you, the Board of Legislators, my bosses behind me, these wonderful people. Really appreciate your commitment to safety for women and children in general, victims of domestic violence.